See? All right, we should be live here in a second. Dave, just check the YouTube, the interwebs, and just make sure we actually show up on YouTube. Okay, it says we're doing well. Let's just take a look. Let's see if my chat room actually pops up here in a second, and we should be live. And yes, the chat room is working now in Ecamm, fellas. So it is. It was just that. It was because we weren't live. That's why it wasn't working. So
I got an ad.
Got an ad?
Oh, come on. You're not a premium subscriber? Come on now.
No.
Oh, yeah. You may this one.
I see it now.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So welcome everybody here.
Hey,
to
Zona
Mixing
Recording.
Music
How you
Analog.
doing?
How's everybody doing today? So this is our first, not our first live stream, but this is our first live stream as a threesome. And this is a new series that we came up with called Subscriber Studio Spotlight. And what that is exactly what it says. Every month, Dave and I are going to do a live stream with another one of you on the live stream where we're talking about your studio and sharing your studio and talking to us about gear and all the crazy things that we talk about. So our first guest and guinea pig for this new series is our good longtime friend, student, and buddy, Jimmy Farmer. Jimmy, welcome to Subscriber Studio Spotlight. Say that 3 times fast.
Subscriber Studio Spotlight.
There you go. And so if any of you guys, and I know a lot of you that hang out in the chat, or you guys will see this on the replay, and you've emailed me stuff and we talk about all the gear that you have in your studio. If you want to be on an episode of Subscriber Studio Spotlight, what you need to do is really simple. You need to go out to mixingmusicanalog.com, my website, and send me an email. Tell me a little bit about your studio. You don't have to get too detailed. Tell me about what kind of gear you have, and just tell me, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll try to hook up for maybe a quick Zoom chat offline and kind of work out some of the details. So there's a couple of things you're going to need if you want to be part of the Subscriber Studio Spotlight. I won't say that perfectly throughout this whole broadcast, I promise. You got to have like a decent, webcam or, video. You can see Jimmy looks really good on his. You need to have something that has decent video, something with some decent audio and lighting, and then the ability to hopefully give us a little, even if it's with your smartphone, a little tour of your studio at one point in the broadcast. So if you're able to shoot video and audio and do all of that stuff in your studio, and most of you guys that have gear, I'm sure can, then you will have the minimum requirements to be on a future broadcast. So make sure you email me as well. And then last about that, and then we're going to jump into what Jimmy's studio is all about. This is really for studios that are in some level of hybrid to analog mixing and recording, right? Because that's what we do here. We're not really featuring studios at this time where you're all in the box just with plugins. We want someone that has at least a couple of pieces of gear, or someone who's in the process of buying some gear. You don't have to have a console or anything like that, but you got to be kind of in the hybrid thing, because that's what we do here. So even if you only have 1 or 2 pieces of gear and you're like in the process of building your studio towards a more hybrid setup, that's totally cool. Or if you're all the way in, kind of like we are, that's cool as well, and anything in between. So having said all of that, email me to the website if you want to be on a future episode. So let's talk to our good buddy, Jimmy Farmer. Jimmy, again, thanks for coming, and thanks for being the first one here on Subscriber Studio Spotlight. I appreciate it.
Thank you for asking. I'm really excited to do this.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. So tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your musical journey in your studio. And I know it's down in your house there. Tell us a little bit about your setup. What do you got? What do you got kind of going on there? And then you're going to take us on a virtual tour at one point, but talk a little bit about your studio itself.
Sure. It started out like anybody else with a laptop and an interface, and I have been playing music since I was 16. I'm much older than that now. And and actually, I live in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State. And some of you may be aware that in the early 90s, there was kind of a scene here. May have heard
really?
May have heard some of the bands that came from here.
Absolutely.
And we were part of that scene, my band at the time. We were kind of like tier 3. We were never super famous or anything, but I was in a band called the Malchicks here from 90 to 96. And we put out a couple of singles and a CD. And so that's kind of my musical background. And then I got realized we weren't going to be in the next Nirvana or whatever. So we all kind of got on with our lives, and but I kept playing music, and I started playing out again. It had to have been like 12 years ago now, in cover bands and stuff, just for fun.
Yeah.
I just do music for fun now because I have an actual day job with a family and all that stuff.
Right.
And we did a demo in the band I was in previously, and it was terrible. I'm like, I could do better than that. And then really in the back with the band, when we did our CD, I was like, I could probably do better than that in the back of my mind. And so, and then in the band I'm in now, we did an album, and I'm like, I could probably do better than that. And so I decided to put my money where my mouth is and bought the gear and started learning how to record and mix.
Right.
And so that's how it really got started. And so really I've been seriously doing this since 2018.
Oh, okay.
And,
so not that long then.
No.
Really?
And,
I mean, as a musician, obviously a musician much longer, but as an engineer, as it were, really you're still in the first 5 years or so.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. See, that's interesting.
Yeah. And
so I've been doing it I've been doing it a couple years longer than you have. That's surprising me. I thought you were doing it longer than I was.
No, I'm still a noob, really. Yeah,
Not
but,
really.
Obviously, but the thing for me is that obviously wanted to record our band, and my band is a alt country band or alt Americana or whatever you want to call it, and we have it's all live instruments, live drums, and live guitars and everything, and I wanted to have the ability. You have to have a lot of inputs to record drums, and so once I started recording our songs, and I started out with an iTrack, the Focusrite iTrack Mini or whatever it is. It's basically has one high Z and one low Z input, and obviously
it was
that
like
wasn't
the
going to work.
precursor. Yeah, it was like the precursor to the Solo that they have out now.
Yes, exactly. It was the previous version of the Solo, and so once I realized that I was going to need more inputs than one, I bought the Claret 4 Pre, which is sitting over there, and I'll show it in my little tour. And and I did some recordings, and I was like, 4 inputs isn't enough for drums. That became real apparent real quick. And the Claret 4 Pre had 4 ins and outs for analog as well. So I bought a what is that? It's sitting above the Pro MPA2 from Art. So that I had 6 inputs, and then I was like, okay, 6 is better than 4, but I need more than that. And so for a while, I actually limped along with using the iTrack Solo, and then did in the Mac you can combine 2 interfaces into one, and I did that. I can't remember what it's called. And you think I would because I work tech for a living, but good Lord, I can tell you all about Office 365. That's a different anyway. Right. So I ran that way for a while, and it worked. But then I ended up, after about a year, was like, no. And so I guess this is a good time to just kind of show what I have now, and I can kind of talk through how I got to here now from there. So I'm going to grab my phone.
Sure, go ahead and do that. So give us kind of like you started with those couple of interfaces. So just kind of show us that. Show us what you first kind of started with before you started getting into all the craziness that we're going to talk about later. So give us kind of like, what was kind of the first setup? Let's take a look. And if you guys have any questions in the chat, post them up there, and we'll try to, ask Jimmy, and we'll, as we're going along, if you have any questions about what he's got going on there, we're going to try to hit him up and get some information.
Yeah, and I actually don't know where my iTrack Solo is, but you all know what it looks like. But this is this is what I bought to replace it, and that's the Claret 4 Pre. And then this is the Pro 2 MPA that I bought shortly after, when I realized it was like I did 2 songs, I believe, with the 4 inputs, and was like, no, I need more than that, so I bought this.
That's a good unit, though.
Yeah, no, and actually this will go back into play once I have more analog ins and outs, which I'll get to. And so basically then once I did that, I bought, this is the Warm Audio WA273, which is Neve, two channels of Neve for all intents and purposes. So I had so that got me to all 8 of my inputs used on my Claret 4 Pre. So I had the 4 on the front of the Claret, and then the Art, and then this. And then I bought this next. This is the 412, and that's basically API. And what I did in this when I got this is I went into the front 4 inputs of my Claret. So instead of using the built-in preamps on the Claret, I used this. So basically, I was using 8 channels of analog, and then it was just using my Claret as the converter. And so I was stuck there for a long time. And
so why didn't you just, because you bought some pieces of hardware to give you some of those extra preamps, why didn't you just go with another standard interface and kind of daisy chain them together to give you your 8 or 10 or 12 preamps? You know what I'm saying?
That's that's a very good question. So basically, at that point, I started looking at, I need an interface with more ins and outs. And so I did some research. I ended up, this is the Mo2 828 ES.
Yeah.
And it has 2 built-in inputs, and then has 8 ins and outs on the back. And so that kind of gets me, basically I got 2 more inputs, so I had 10 total. And then a friend of me actually gifted me this PreSonus. It's an ADAT. It's a Digimax LT. It's really old. But so basically, I figured that 10 inputs plus this, if needed, was going to get me what I was going to need for a while. And then the pandemic hit. And so
right. So how many channels is that PreSonus, Jimmy? Is that 8?
That's 8. Although channel 1 doesn't work, but that's whatever.
So
that's
what unit is that specifically? I'm not familiar with that one.
It's called the Digimax LT. It's really old. It's probably from the aughts.
And what is that? That's just a daisy chain to another interface to give you more I/O.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is connected. Yeah, this is connected via ADAT to my Mo2.
Right.
And I actually don't turn it on unless I'm going to use it, because this will be the clock source if I have it on, and then I can't go any higher than 48K.
Right. So how many inputs did all the things you just told us? What did you land on as far as how many now preamp inputs did you have to record your bands?
So that leaves me with 10 plus 7, 17. Because channel 1 doesn't work on this, but 17 is more than enough for me to record my band. And then
you can do 17 simultaneous inputs with that setup.
Yep, exactly.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, that's a good setup.
And then I bought this. Actually, no, I bought this first. I got the Audioscape. This is the LA2A from Audioscape that you reviewed on your channel.
Yeah.
And I bought this. I actually had this before you did, so I'm going to brag.
You sure did. Yeah. I'll tell the viewers that the person that actually told me about Audioscape, Jimmy, was you. I think I was looking for an LA2A, and I don't know if, Dave, you were involved in that. You might have been. You might have been the bridge in that conversation where you said, hey, Jimmy said something about Audioscape makes an LA2A. And I said, who's Audioscape? And that's how I got into it. So, yeah, Jimmy, you actually introduced us to Audioscape, and then, people that watch the channel know we have a really great working relationship with them. So thank you for that. They make great stuff, obviously.
Yeah. This is all your fault.
Yes, exactly. And then this is their 2 channel all tube preamp. It's called the Golden 58.
Yep.
And this is what I have I took out my Art and put this in its place for now. And this thing is freaking brilliant. And the thing that's really cool about this, and this has kind of led me into the hybrid realm for hybrid mixing, is that this has can be wired both for a line and mic, and it has separate inputs for each. So basically, the way I have this set up right now is it's on line, and it's wired into my interface with an out. So and then I put an insert on my master bus in Logic, and so then when I mix, everything goes through this, and then obviously at that point I have to bounce out real time rather than
right.
Jimmy, where'd you get the idea to do that, Jimay?
I don't know, Dave. I can't remember who mentioned that. Yeah. And I was so David SJ says you should use that since it's just sitting there, because obviously, now that we're playing again, we can have people come down and record, and I want to do that soon. But I was like, it's just sitting here, and I've recorded some demos and stuff through it, but no vocal, because I'm a terrible singer, so I don't even want to subject anyone to that, but I've recorded bass and guitar and acoustic guitar and stuff through it, and it sounds awesome. But then I can switch. So basically, this is the line mic, and so I have it wired up for both. And since it's already wired as an in put onto my interface, it's 9 and 10. I know that. All I need to do if I want to use it for recording is flip the switch, and then I can record. And then I put it back online when I'm. And I actually know where the numbers are. You can see where the dials are set right now is where I have a note of it so that I can put that back for mixing, because obviously that changes. That's the input for any mic. And
how and what do you feel that that's adding to your mixes at this point for you?
This is so cliche, but because I wasn't, to be honest with you, I was kind of it can't be that big of a difference, and because and as we talked about my journey, I mean, I started in the box. I mean, I have recorded in real studios, but that's just as a musician. And quite frankly, at that time of my life, I didn't care about that stuff. I didn't have the patience for it. As a matter of fact, as I've been remixing our album from '92, there's so many things that I would want to re-record now, because I can't believe that our producer told me to redo the solo, and I was like, no, that's good enough. And 30 years later, I can tell you that he was right. It was not good enough. I should have done it again. But I'm getting off topic. Sorry. But but you get my point. Yeah. So anyway, so once you mentioned, hey, you should try running your mixes through that. So I did. I wired it up with balance cables out of, the balance outs out of my thing into the line on this. Right. And then put the plug-in in on a mix I was working on. And I just did A/B to get the volume, to set the knobs so that it was the same, gain staged. And I would turn it off and it would become 2D, and I would turn it on and it would become 3D. And I know that's so cliche.
Well, no, it's not. I mean, it is. But we've been, over the last 2 months, we've been talking a lot about that on our channel. That kind of phenomenon, if you will, of what as Dave and I have worked through some more demos and gear demos and all the plug-in things and stuff. We have, that one thing keeps standing out more and more to us. So no, I know it sounds cliche, and I know. And a lot of people say that, but until you've actually stood in the room and listened to that, you don't really realize it until you hear it and you go, "Oh my goodness!" So that isn't all a bunch of hype and baloney. It's actually true.
Interestingly enough, too, Jimmy, is you can do the same thing with the WA-273, because that's got line-ins in the back too. So you could actually wire that. You could actually then have the choice between a tube and a Neve type of a preamp, depending on what the song needs, which is what I run into a lot. Is a lot of times if the song needs, depending on what the song needs, is which preamp I hook into.
So when you're recording, Jim, so now it sounds to me like you have, from a preamp input point of view, you have a wide variety. So you're not just plugging into an 8-channel whatever Focusrite and all using only Focusrite pre's. You're using some Focusrite, you're using some Warm Audio, you're using some Audioscape. You're using a wide variety of different types of preamps for your recording on the way in, correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So that in and of itself,
really,
go ahead.
I would say, so really it comes down to what I want to get out of it. So like, let's say I was going to track drums. And so what I do to track drums is I would use the 2-channel tube for overheads. I would use the 2-channel Neve for kick and snare. And then I would do everything else on the API. And that's usually how I roll when I'm recording drums here. And that's because I want the girth, the weight that the Neve give the kick and the snare, and the detail that the tube preamp gives for the overheads, because the overheads are supposed to be a capture of the entire drum set, at least for the style of music that I record. Yep. And then I want the quick response for the transients for the toms And so like I have 2 toms and then say 2 room mics for stereo room pair.
Yep.
Yep.
And then if I want to get weird and have a crush mic or something, that's when I will turn on the presonus or use my 2 available inputs on my Motu now to do something additional. But and I like a worst mic, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
To give you that extra sound that you can blend in somehow if you feel it needs it. So now you've got everything. So that's kind of how you get everything into the box. Now, for what tell people what DAW do you use what are you recording into?
I use Logic.
Apple Logic. Okay, Logic Pro.
Logic Pro. Yeah.
Right, Logic Pro.
And that's actually here. I'll show you. So that's my Mac Mini.
We're gonna talk about that. Great. So you got that Mac Mini. So now, what year is that? Is that one of the new M1s, or is that an older one?
It's one of the M1s. It's last year, or actually 2021. I've had it a year.
Okay.
I think. And time is blurring.
Yeah. What's the what's the RAM and some of the specs on that? Do you know?
It's the 16 gig. That's at the time that was the max. So basically, it's the base model with that. So it's the 512, a half a terabyte drive, and the 8 gigs. And then I bought this is a Satachi.
Yeah, that's Satachi. Yep.
And then I put a 1 terabyte stick in there for external drives. So basically, I have anything that's live, working mix or working session on my Mac Mini, and then when I'm done to free up space, I move it to the drive inside the Satachi. And then I also have on my floor down here is my backup drive that I have connected.
Oh, nice.
Great.
Everything gets backed up.
So now, because you're mixing, we'll talk about your mixing setup in a sec. I know you have some hardware you're mixing it, but most of what you're mixing is with plugins and Logic, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's 100%. In the box, I'm just using the Golden 58 as a summing bus for a summing mixer.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how do you find that Mac Mini, that spec'd out Mini, from a performance point of view, plugins? I know you use lots of plugins in your DAW. How do you find that particular model? Do you have no problems with it? Do you feel it's spec'd out enough?
I have no problems with it whatsoever. I had a 2015-ish MacBook Pro that I was using beforehand, and it was really starting to falter. Like some of the mixes I do and mixing made easy. By the time I was done, I was having to solo buses to hear what I was doing. Otherwise, it wouldn't play. I'd hit the space bar. I need to get that dreaded not enough resources thing. That all Logic users are familiar with. And so to hear a mix in total, I would have to actually bounce it out.
I couldn't listen to it. Really?
Yeah. And I work in IT, so I'm kind of used to dealing with stuff like that. Computers that are slow and stuff like that. So
sure.
I probably put up with it much longer than any sane person would have. I'm going to switch. But finally one day I hit the space bar one little time. And I was like, screw this. And really what I was waiting for was the Motu drivers. They weren't M1 certified until like last year. And so that was really the whole, because even though a lot of the plugins I were using still weren't M1 certified, I knew that I could run Logic in Rosetta mode, which is emulated. And then the plugins would work fine. I mean, I'd researched that on the internet and knew that was the case, but my problem is the drive was the driver for the Motu. And then so basically once the Motu said, okay, our drivers are M1 certified, I said, awesome, I'm going to buy an M1 Mac Mini and cut over, because screw that, it was just too much.
Yeah,
it was really slowing me down. And now with the Mac Mini, I find I've very rarely, if ever, see that dreaded message, and it's usually when I have too many reverbs. Which is
that's a powerful machine. I mean, I have that same unit on the console, but I don't use a lot of plugins. But so that's why I asked. I was interested because you use a lot of plugins, and you basically have the same machine we have over here, but we're not using plugins. We're just using it so Studio One can run in the background. But
we're not taxing that computer at all.
No, not at all. We're not even touching it. So the fact that you're able to do really full on, mixes with all your plugins that you use and stuff, and that machine is got the horsepower, and that machine brand new is less than $1,000. I mean, at least it was at the time. I mean, it's probably 16 gigs. It's probably like $1,000 at most. That's a pretty good a pretty good computer. So now when you're done recording now, is the only hardware when you're at the mixing stage, is the only thing you're doing is driving it out through the Golden Age and back in? Is that what you're doing? Or do you use any of your LA2 or any of that other stuff?
No, I haven't done any of the other things yet. So the kind of my goal was when I started buying the hardware, is it was for recording only. And because I didn't want, I was, to me, it seemed like a hassle to go out to the analog gear and you have to bounce in real time and yada, 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 and recall all of that stuff.
Yep.
And, and so that's why I was like, in my mind, okay, there's recording is through my hardware that I bought, and mixing is in the box. And then, like I was saying, once I got the Golden 58, David's like, you should probably run some mixes through there and see what it sounds like. And just so you know, I had done that before with the Warm Audio, and that was when I still had my claret. And to me, probably in retrospect was because my ears weren't developed enough yet. I heard no difference. It was like,
right.
I run it through there and it sounds the same to me as so. And it would be interesting to do that again now and see if I do notice that, or maybe I wasn't driving it hard enough. There's a lot of things that were.
It depends on how you hit the gear, and then also too, it may not be your ears. Some gear doesn't have that much of an. It depends on what you're running through it. I know that because I've had that experience in the past with gear. I've even had that experience with another console where I ran stems through a console and put it through plugins and heard no difference. And so I think it really depends. So it could just be that the Warm Audio, you weren't putting enough through it, or you weren't hitting it hard enough, or it just wasn't giving you that thing where maybe the Golden Age that has that thing that you're liking, and that's what's nice about gear, is that it all sounds a little different. In other words, so when you buy an 1176 plug-in, no matter whose you buy, they all pretty much sound the same. There's not wild differences between one to the other. But if you buy an 1176 from Audioscape or from Warm Audio, for Purple Audio, or from Universal Audio, they all of those sound vastly different. They really truly do. So that it could have been maybe not your ears. It just could have been you didn't have the right piece of gear for what you wanted to hear at that time.
But also too, like my experience with it is, because like I run either a Warm Audio Neve or a Warm Audio API, is the way the preamp reacts is very much dependent on the program material going into it. Like something like a really dynamic, faster type of a track with a lot of heavy transient drums and stuff like that, the Warm Audio tends to round that over a little bit, whereas the API tends to project it a little bit further forward. Now we're talking very subtle differences here. But what I found with the way I work is, if I have like a more acoustic or a slower type of a song, or something like the Black Magic marching band stuff that I've mixed, who doesn't have any drums in it, the Warm Audio, the Neve really excels at that, because it just does a really nice job on it. Whereas, like if I'm doing something with heavier transients, bigger drums, faster song, the API tends to be a little bit better for that one. And then it also just turns into a real taste thing too. It's like sometimes you just feel like having an API on it, you throw it on there, Yeah. But like I said, it's and you are right too. It's like, it is so subtle sometimes to hear the difference between them. I mean, it is not a huge thing, but it just does something that I have to have when I mix. And I like, and now Jimmy too, you see it now too. It's like you're hearing that thing that we have so much trouble putting into words, but you're hearing that thing that, like, you're like, once you get a taste of that, it's hard to let it go. It really is.
I think the best way for me to kind of describe it is that I notice it when I take it away. Right. I don't notice it. I don't notice it when I turn it on, but when I turn it off, it's like, oh, I want to turn that back on.
Yeah, it's like what exactly?
I need that. Yeah, I need that back. I need it back now. Yeah.
Whatever just went away.
Put that back. So now so you're just using the Golden Age, running your mix through that, and then you're printing it back in, and that's the only piece of hardware that you're using in your mixing right now. Is that right?
Right. That's correct.
Talk to me about, quickly, because someone mentioned about cables. Let's talk about your cabling. What kind of cables do you use? What brands do you use? I mean, what's your experience with that? We've been through a couple of cable nightmares over here, and so people ask about cables, and I know I ended up rightfully or wrongfully on the almost the most expensive cables you can buy, just because I got fed up and just said I'm not messing around with cables. But what do you do? You know,
honestly, I buy the Proco ones or whatever from Sweetwater.
Mm.
And I mean, my runs are,
not very long.
This long.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, and, well, I guess I could, here, let me put the camera back and I'll show you the back.
Do you have a patch bay? I didn't see any patch bay.
No.
Do you have a patch bay? Okay.
Nope, I don't. It's going all directly between my interface and I'll show you. It's just easier to show.
And you just leave it patched the way it's patched, right? However you have it connected, you just leave it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and I do, since the only thing I'm doing right now is running it through the golden age, everything else is wired for input only. And so basically, so basically it's going to be a little dark back here, but
no, it's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so basically it goes, this is all my ins and outs.
Yep.
And so it's only what? That's 3 feet maybe?
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, 3 to 5 feet.
Yeah.
Yep. But I did run into the thing that I bought, 2 3-foot cables, and I needed a 3 and a 5.
Yeah.
It's like because it's like on this, there's one input here and then one over here, and so 3 foot would reach fine here, but it would get about here when it needs to be here. And it's like, gosh darn it.
Yeah, and if you're as anal about it as I am, you have to have 2 of the same length cords going into it. So like you have to run 2 5s into it because they have to be the same length, damn it. So by the way, we did not mention your we didn't get to the monitoring situation for you. So what do you use for monitors?
That was on my list.
I have the Kali LP6. Yeah.
Kali LP6s?
And how do you like those?
Yeah, and it's the original run.
Yeah, those are really affordable set of speakers. I mean they're like $400 or something for a pair. I mean, they're not even something like that. $400 or $500 a pair.
When I bought them, and I got them when they first came out, and which was 2019. 2019. As a matter of fact, I bought, it was a Warren Hewitt review of them. And I was like, okay, if Warren likes them, I'm going to buy them. And so I asked for them for Christmas, so my wife bought them for me. That was my Christmas present.
Nice.
And it was $700 for the pair. I mean, it was incredibly cheap.
Yeah.
And but I was like, if Warren says they sound good, and actually I had been mixing on headphones until that point. I think this is an important thing to bring up, is that for the first year I was mixing on headphones and it was atrocious. I know that people can do it, and I probably can do it now, but I needed to learn what things sounded like for real, and I think I could probably mix on headphones now and be okay. But when I was learning, for me, it was poor. I listened to some of my mixes from like 4 years ago, and I'm like, man, that's terrible. And once I got the speakers and had them set up right, it really opened up my eyes to, that's what stuff. I mean, I would listen to, I just turned on Spotify and let it play for a while so I could get used to what the speakers sounded like.
Right.
Exactly.
Like, oh my God, that's what it's supposed to sound like. And then, as a matter of fact, I want to say that the song, that the Palatine Owl song I gave you, the Southbound, that was my first one that I mixed on speakers. And it was, and it was annoying though, because like when I was recording it, I would forget to mute my interface, and so I'd start recording, and then the sound would come out of the speakers, and I was like, "Damn it, sorry, man, we gotta start over."
Yeah.
And my drummer was like, "What the hell?"
So what do you have in there for like any kind of acoustic treatment? I see you got some furniture and stuff back there that helps absorb some of the sound, but what else do you got? Anything? What do you have in there that you use?
I have, they're from, what are they called? Let me look at them. GIK?
GIK?
Yeah, and they're just basically these.
Okay, I see them. Yep.
And so that's first reflection, and then I have some
that are just behind my speakers. Even though these speakers are way off, this room is huge. It's like 100 feet long. So I'm actually lucky that it's not, it's not really a crappy space. And then it's unfinished, so that like the ceiling has, as you can see, it has built-in diffusion and stuff. So I'm actually pretty lucky that I have this space. This is the basement of my house, and I'm not supposed to show my wife's side, so don't look behind me.
Right.
I was given specific orders.
No, that's good. You have a big room. So because you don't have your speakers in a corner, which is what most people have, because that's just what you're dealing with, the bass trapping becomes even more important in a smaller room. In a big room like that, when you have a lot of room behind your speakers, like I said, you can see right through to the next room. Some absorption behind them is great. But you have so much, like you said, built-in acoustic treatment and diffusion and stuff, and you don't have tight walls. And all those racks and everything you have behind you, all that stuff helps breaks up the sounds, which is one of the reasons why your mixes, you can mix in that room and get good mixes that come out of them.
Yeah. And I found that the BOGOs help in the sense of like when I put them up and I sat in my spot, it was dead.
Yeah.
Like you could get that sense of it's dead. I mean, and again, that's a subtle thing. But it was a big difference, and I mixed really quiet, like Al from my band, from the Malchicks, when he came over to, he just wanted the opportunity to hear the singled out the solo tracks from the 16 track tapes we had digitized, because he thought it was cool.
Yeah.
And so he came over one day, and I brought it up, and I just hit play at my normal volume that I mix at. He's like, "How can you hear that?" And I'm like, I'm used to it now, and to me, it helps me focus, because I kind of have to think about it's not just blasting and then.
That's right.
But I can be down here for 4 or 5 hours, and my ears aren't fatigued because it's so quiet.
That's right.
But then, like as I get towards the end, then I put on the big speakers that I have that are my far room speakers that are just hi-fi speakers from my childhood. That I inherited from my dad, and I turn it up loud and listen to it loud once, and then that's the end of it. At the end of the day, and it's usually like 2 a.m, and I'm down in the basement, and everybody's up on the 3rd floor, so they can't hear it, which is good.
Nice.
Although I've mixed quite a few songs where, like, my wife and daughter can hear, because since this is unfinished, you can kind of have a conversation through the floor, which is not a good thing.
Yeah.
And so they'll hear, there's a song we're mixing that they don't like, and they're like, "Can you please get done with that one? Because I'm tired of hearing that song." I'm
tired of that song. So yeah, that's great. So now anyone in the chat, I don't know how many people we got here, quite a few, but if you got any questions for Jimmy or anything about his studio, hit him up in the chat right now. I'll throw him up on the screen, and we'll see if Jimmy can answer any of your questions. If you have any questions about his gear, his setup, whatever you want to ask him, I'm sure he'd be happy to help. But yeah, mixing out low volumes is something that I've been teaching for a long time. And it took me, when I first started to do that many years ago, it was tough at first. I will say I used to mix quite loud many years ago, and it was difficult to go real low and to be disciplined enough to not touch the frickin' knob on my interface or whatever I was using at that time. But once you get used to it, it's so you can hear the critical listening is so more dialed in, I feel, because you have to focus. And if you could hear things at low volumes and you can hear everything, then it's only going to sound that much better when you kind of turn it up a little bit. The only thing that I try to crank it up a little bit is really to make sure that the low end isn't way too overpowering when you turn it up. Because at low volumes, obviously, you feel like there's not enough low end, and you can get a little bit too aggressive with it. And then when you turn it up, it's way too boomy. But other than that, especially for upper mids, mid-range, upper mid-range, that low volume is very, very critical.
Yeah, and what I do for the low end is
yes.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Headphones.
I know, like, because me personally, I mix loud. I mean, I have a decibel meter, and I'm usually working around 85 decibel. In here.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
not
not ear splitting.
Loud.
That's not ear splitting,
it's
but
not
it's up there.
loud, but it's loud. I mean, like I could have a conversation with somebody in the room, but it's up there. And but like I just that's just the way I like to work. You know what I mean? I like to feel it a little bit when I mix. So, you know, but then again, too,
everybody does it different.
I will,
That's cool.
Yeah, I'll cut it to half at, you know, and listen back over it a few times too, to make sure that I'm not off base too. And then there's like the fader test where like you slowly fade to 0 to hear if there's anything that's sticking out too far, you know, stuff like that. I do all of that, but just like my general mixing is at between 80 and 85 decibels. So I'm definitely up there.
You're up there a little louder. Yeah, that's totally fine. That's cool. So, Jimmy, if I had to ask you, what is the one, if you had to get rid of all of it and you only could keep one piece of outboard gear, what is, I think I know what the answer is now after talking to you a bit, but what is the number, what's your favorite today, your favorite piece of gear that you got?
That
you
golden
say,
58.
I can't get rid of that.
Yeah.
It's the golden 58 from Audioscape. That
from
thing
Audioscape, yeah. And that's one of your most recent purchases, right? So that's really cool.
That's my latest purchase.
So do you have any other gear on your horizon that you're looking at, or anything you're doing to expand in or are you just going to kind of live with what you have for now?
Once we actually start recording, like again, I was building all this up, and then the pandemic hit and we couldn't get together and record. So I really want to go through and record the band a couple of times with the stuff that I have now and see how it pans out. I would probably want to replace the PreSonus, the ADAT inputs with more actual analog stuff, and so I would have to get I don't even know if Motu has it, but like what's their version of Dante is like APM or A.
They do make something, yes.
And so that just basically has just ins and outs on the back, and that's like a 2U, and then I could put that in there, and then get more. I probably would get another 273, so I have 4 total of Neve, and then I'm not sure where I go from there, but basically get more input that's not just purely digital. That would be where I eventually see myself going. And again, really my focus is the space is that most of that gear is mostly for recording, getting stuff in, and then because that was the biggest. I think this is important to talk about, is that for my Claret or even for the inputs on my Motu that have the where you can plug a mic cable in. That is so clean, and that's good, but it's also sterile. Right. And I found as soon as I got that Pro MPA2 and recorded through it for the first time, it added that imperfection, for lack of a better term.
That's right.
The imperfection that's missing, that you're used to hearing on all the albums you love.
Right.
And that's the hard thing to fix in the box. And so to me, it was really about, when I record stuff in, I want that harmonics information, that harmonic information, whatever it adds, printed to tape, for you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
And then I could mix in the box from there and not have to get as crazy. Get it right at the source. For that's another tired term. That's really what.
I hear what you're saying. So you're recording through an analog path mostly, so all of that stuff is kind of pre-baked. So you're starting with a foundation now that's already kind of, you've laid the foundation already. You're not starting with nothing on the ground and you're driving up to the job site. You've already now laid the foundation. And Robbie asked a question here, which is kind of ties into this. He asked, what do we recommend for the first piece of outboard gear for mixing? Well, more importantly than the piece of gear, which we can all give our opinions on that, is, and Jimmy, you're doing this, is something on your master bus. And I know Dave's done a video for our channel here recently. We talked about it last time. I think Dave was up here in my studio about if you're going to start with mixing hybrid, the first place you want to go is the master bus, whether it's a preamp like Jimmy and Dave are doing, or whether it's something like an SSL Fusion like I do, or, combination of stuff. On the master bus is where the most bang for the buck is, because that's where all the audio is hitting that piece of equipment in the end, even if it didn't hit anything before it. So that's what I would suggest. But is there a specific, Jimmy will start with our guest here. Is there a specific piece of gear that you would recommend to Robbie? First piece of mixing gear?
Good luck getting one, but the Golden 58. But it's really something like that. So it could be the WA-70 273 or the Golden 58 or some kind of, and you'll basically be doing analog summing at that point. You're running everything through that. And as David said, that gives you your biggest bang for the buck because everything is put through that, and then and then you go from there. So because the further away you get from your mix bus, the more stuff you got to buy. And I know that you talked about it on your last stream, and I thought that was you hit the nail on the head with that. It's a bang for the buck, master bus to start, and like I don't have any experience with the SSL Fusion, but I know that a lot of people love that thing, and so something that, for lack of a better term, a color box, something that adds that analog juju, for lack of a better term.
That mojo, so yours is that Golden 7, that Audioscape preamp that you can't get because they don't make a lot of them. Dave, what about you? Which one is give them? You only got one now because you got a whole bunch of stuff. So if you got to recommend one piece,
anything. To just as a general rule for me, it would be anything with a converter in it. Jesus
transformer.
Christ,
You're thinking transformer.
Thank you.
Transformer.
Anything with a transformer in it. You gotta have, because I've said it before. I'll say it again here. Running audio through a mile of copper wire wrapped around an iron core just does something to the audio. Okay, so anything that has a transformer in it put it on your master bus. Now I would say, like for my preferences, I would start with a good preamp. I would start with a good stereo preamp. I have two to choose from. Jimmy has a couple to choose from. I don't care which one you get, just something. Okay. The Warm Audio bus compressor also has a transformer, a switchable transformer in it. So like if you're looking for a good, like a single piece to start with, that's going to do everything for you, I'd probably say something like the Warm Audio bus compressor or another stereo bus compressor that has a transformer in it.
Oh, Jimmy fell down.
We lost Jimmy.
Jimmy died.
Jimmy's down. Jimmy's
Okay,
down.
I knew it was going to happen sooner or later because I had to connect my headphones to this dumb thing.
So Dave, which piece of gear? Which piece out of your rack there? Which piece?
Out of my rack, the first thing I would start with would be the API, the Warm Audio WA412 API preamp. That's where I would start if I was somebody else. Like I said, if somebody came to me and says, what's the first piece of gear out of my rack I think you should buy, it would be that. It would be the Warm Audio WA412 API preamp.
Cool. Yeah. For me, it would be the one I have is the Fusion, only because I already have a lot of analog prior to it. But if I was starting off at the very beginning, I think I would try. I've never tried it in person, but the plugin's outstanding, and I know someone that has the hardware, and I've almost bought it, Dave. I was so close at one point, which is the Audio Designs Black Box H2. Which has got two sets of transformers, two sets of different style tubes in it, and that is a hell of a color box. And so I would that would probably be the one if I didn't have anything and I was starting off. I might even do that before something like the Fusion, although the Fusion is cool only in that there's 4 modules. So you have a little bit of compressor, a little bit of EQ, some stereo. You have a little of everything. But the transformer circuit in that is I feel is very tame. It's kind of mild. The drive circuit's okay. But what I find myself doing currently, because I don't have another piece of hardware yet, is after the Fusion, going back in on the print track, I might even saturate it up a little more with a plugin or two that I don't tell people which ones I use, but I have a couple.
Really?
Yeah, and I just I'm just touching them just a little bit. So because I feel like the Fusion, although it does everything, it works, it's well, but I tend to use it a little more subtle, and then I'm more of a not slam the living daylights out of one piece of gear, but maybe hitting it a few times, a little more mild. But so I would love to have that Audio Designs black box, but it's pricey. It is kind of pricey, and it takes up a lot of rack space. So maybe a stereo bus compressor of some kind, Robbie, would probably be something. Maybe something that has a compressor with an EQ in it too, you know, where you get a little bit of the best of both worlds.
Yeah. The one thing I should stress, and I am going to do a video about it sooner or later. The one thing I do stress is when you are using a preamp on your master bus, you do not want to push it into the red. You don't want to clip it because you don't want to distort the mix. So you have to be pretty conservative with your levels with it. Now, the reason I bring that up is because the Warm Audio WA412 is not a line level preamp. It is a mic level preamp. So you have to be so careful with how you do it. Cause like the way I set it up, and like I said, I'm going to do a video where I show this. I have the 20 decibel pad engaged. The level knob is all the way down to 0. I mean, it's all the way down, and I'm coming out of the DAW usually at -9 to -12 on the output of the DAW to it. So you're just not slamming into it, you know? So like I said, when you do something like that, if you can find a preamp like the Warm Audio WA273, which has a line level input that you don't have to worry about that, you might be better off than starting with that unless like I said, if you do something like that with something that only has mic level input, you absolutely have to very carefully gain stage in and out so that you're not burning your mix.
Right. So there's some trial and error, and everybody that gets their first piece of gear hits it way too hard because it sounds really good. And then you go back and listen to it and go, I hit that way too hard. But that's just the joy and the beauty of learning of how to use it. And every piece of gear, there's a sweet spot in there. And some of them need to be hit really hard to sound the way you want them to sound. And in other ones, depending on the circuitry and the type of unit it is, you don't want to hit it hard at all. So it really depends on the piece of gear. But I think what we're all three of us are saying is you want something with some kind of iron in transformer in it. And then what it is really is just your own personal taste and flavor. And
exactly.
And then you experiment with stuff until you find kind of what sound you like Jimmy did, right? So you had a sound, and then you hit that golden age preamp, and you said, oh, that's the Warm Audio didn't quite do it for you. And then you got that piece, and you went, oh, that's what the sound that I'm looking for, whatever that sound is. Right. So are there any questions for our guest here? If you have any questions for Jimmy about his studio, now would be the time to ask. We're running almost an hour. We're going to try to keep these around an hour long, these episodes. So again, someone asked in the chat a little earlier, how do you sign up for this? You might have come in a little late. If you want your studio highlighted or spotlighted on a future episode here, make sure you go out to mixingmusicanalog.com. Send me an email. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your studio, and we'll converse and see if it's something that you want to do. We'll get you on a future episode. So that's how you do it. But you got to have some hardware in your studio. You don't have to have a lot. You can't be a total in the box guy. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we're trying to feature people that are in some level of moving from the box into some analog and kind of on that journey and what they're doing to kind of give people like Robbie tonight who's asking questions, saying, how do you do it, Jim? And then you tell Robbie, this is what I do. And so we're here to try to help others that are all on this journey together. We have a question here from Sean. Sean wants to know, Jim, how do you find the audio in that unfinished basement? He came a little late. So tell him we talked a little bit about this, but good. Well, how do you find it? Mixing in there.
I was going to type the answer, but I'll talk.
Talk.
This room is really big. That's the thing to keep in mind. It's like almost 100 feet long, and it's like 30 feet wide. It's the entire length of my house, unfinished basement. So I'm really lucky because it's not small, so I don't get a lot of the buildup that you get when you're in a room. And since it's unfinished, the ceiling has the beams exposed. So that's a lot of diffusion. We have a lot of, for lack of a better term, crap in here. We have shelves with a bunch of crap because this is where all the stuff lives, in a typical house in the basement. And then, so I'm really lucky in that sense that the room sounds good even without these BOGOs that I have. The BOGOs helped sound better, but I was mixing in here without them and getting good results as well. So I think the key is that it's big. On that note, though, my wife wants to have it sheetrocked, and that's going to change this room
immensely.
and I'm not looking forward to that honestly, because I'm going to have to, at that point, I'll have to do something for sound treatment, and I won't have a choice.
Because you'll have all the reflections. There's where all your reflections are going to come from.
Exactly. And so I'll have to relearn the room, honestly. And that kind of, I hate to say I'm pushing back because, I don't get to, because what the wife says goes, but
right.
I know. Us married guys, we know. Yeah.
I know.
But that's,
I don't have that problem.
I know you don't, you lucky bastard. But just to be clear, I love my wife and it's awesome. So,
yes, especially since she's probably going to watch this.
As she's watching this upstairs.
She's upstairs right now watching it. Watch your mouth, young man.
Yeah.
Stamping on the floor.
Sharpening the knives in the drawer, right? Yeah. Yeah.
But seriously, I get why she wants to do that, because she uses this room as well. Mm-hmm. And so that's fair. But that's the reality of the situation. So I will have to do some treatment at that point and have to relearn the room. And that's kind of a drag, but that's the
but you can do that. Most people do that. And because you listen and monitor at low volumes, it's not going to be as big of a problem for you as you think. It really becomes a problem when you try to crank it up in a room, and especially if you have subwoofers and whatnot, you have that low end. It's really the low end that becomes the problem. Once you cut down the first reflections on the left and the right, it's really the low end. How far is the back wall? So you're
and
better
the back
off.
Wall will still be.
Yeah, you might be better off. You may have a little bit more narrow, but if you have a much deeper room, that's going to help you with that low end, because it's those low sound waves, the travel. It needs that travel. So
and really honestly, my concern is more about the recording piece than the mixing piece, because right now I just, like I showed it earlier, my amp is just sitting over here, and I turn it on and throw a mic in front of it, and it sounds good. Yeah, that might not be the case once it's finished, because there'll be a lot more reflection, and the drums especially. Because right now, they sound pretty good, because it's live enough that they sound like they're in a room, but it's not super echoey. And once there's a lot of reflective surfaces in here, that's going to change drastically. And so I'll be definitely having to put my bogos around the drums when I mic them to make them sound better. But that'll be a part of the journey. Once the room is more finished, I'll get to learn all that.
Yeah. Sean wants to know, Jimmy, if you're on social media. Is there anywhere to follow you, or you're not on that? Or I don't even know if you are.
I am, but just as a person.
Just not part of your studio or part of your music stuff. Just as a personal profile.
If you want to look up, my band from the 90s is called the Malchicks, and we have a Reverb page, and my own personal SoundCloud, which is Jimmy Farmer. Or Jimmy R. Farmer on SoundCloud. I have some stuff posted there of mixes I've done, and then my remixes I've done for my band from the 90s. And then my current band is called Palatine Ave, and not Palpatine. Like, oh, here we go.
There he goes.
Jimmy's falling down again.
Idiot. At Palatine Ave, and that we have stuff that's on SoundCloud that you can look up, and on Spotify that you can look up, but my SoundCloud has stuff that I've recorded with them that I've mixed. So if you go to my SoundCloud, that's really the best place to hear stuff that I've done, if you're interested in hearing what stuff sounded like that's recorded in this room, or mixed in this room.
Yep.
Nice, cool. Yeah, we're going to be mixing one of your the Malchicks next month. I'm going to mix on the console. Really great song. I'm really looking forward to that one, because it's just a great tune. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. And then it'll be kind of cool, because as part of our, Mixing Made Easy membership, is we're going to be able to compare to what like you kind of did with it. What did I do? We're going to have a couple of different, you've already mixed it at one point or another, right? You've already mixed the song. So we're going to have my mix, your mix, and then, 60 other people are going to mix that song, and we're all going to hear their equipment and their environments and their take on the song, and it's going to be really cool. So that'll be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that. So Zona Recording Studio says he's on his 4th studio, and if you need any help, just let them know. Good. That's good to know.
That's nice.
That's really good to know.
Can we go back a little bit and look at Kaiser wants to know when I can do the video on the preamp.
I had that on the screen. Here it is. There it goes.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get to that hopefully within the next couple of weeks. I just finished my mix for the Pure Mix mixing contest, where we got to mix 2.5 minutes of an Alanis Morissette song, which was amazing. I just finished that up today, so I should be available hopefully next weekend, sometime like that, to do it. So we'll see how that works out. And then the other one, Kaiser put a question up, Dave. I got to address that.
What was it, Dave? I'm sorry.
He wants to use 2 different preamps for the left and the right. I have to address that.
Yeah, go ahead. You could talk about it, and I'll find it. I did see it.
Yeah, Kaiser Soze put up a question where I want to use 2 different preamps for the left and the right
there it is.
for mixing. Kaiser, no, you don't.
Yeah, I wouldn't
because
do that.
you're gonna tonally unbalance your mix. No matter what you say or do, you're gonna tonally unbalance the mix. So what you're going to end up with is a I think the word I want to use is a non-linear mix, which is not the right word, but you're going to end up with 2 completely different tonal characters coming out of the left and the right. Now, if you were mixing a Van Halen song from 1978 where the guitar was in one speaker and the bass was in the other, you might be able to get away with that. But no, you're good. Especially like if you have the vocal going up the middle, the vocal coming out of the left speaker is going to have a different tonal character than the vocal coming out of the right speaker. And it's going to throw everything off. It's not going to work. You have to balance the preamps on the left and right channel to keep it symmetrical. You have to.
Well, you can always run it through twice. Like if you wanted 2 different flavors, run it through once and then run it through the other, run it through as a pair through one type of pre, let's say. And then you could always run it through again another type if you wanted to stack different sounds, if that's what you want to do. But yeah, I would tend to agree. I would think you'd want to balance it at least on each one of those passes, Let's see. Sean says he's on his 5th studio build. See, I don't feel so bad when I see guys building stuff 4 and 5 times.
I mean, it's like, but what do you qualify as a studio build? Because I mean, we've torn down and rebuilt the SSL studio 3 times now. So technically, we're on our 3rd. I've torn this thing down and rebuilt it about 6 times over the past couple of years. Adding equipment and changing things around. So technically, I've rebuilt this thing 5 times. It just depends on what you qualify as a studio rebuild. I mean, from like a ground up from the walls and floor, yeah, that's definitely a studio rebuild. And I did offer at one point in time that I would go out to Washington State and help Jimmy build his studio, because I have carpentry and woodworking skills from my past. So like I did offer with I will be more than glad to fly out there and help you build it if you want to do it.
He could sheet rock that basement for you.
Yeah. Yeah,
tell your wife. If your bid's less than what we get from our contractor, we might.
Let your wife know there's someone else that could come out and sheetrock the whole basement.
No, really cool. I didn't say anything about sheetrock.
That's carpentry. So does anyone else have any questions for Jimmy? Jimmy, is there anything else you want to let us know about the studio before we kind of wrap up?
I would nothing more about the studio, but I was going to say that as far as the song we're going to do next month in Mixing Made Easy, that was recorded in an actual studio to 2-inch 24-track tape. So that's an important, and I'm sure you'll make that when you make the stems available. And something that I'm going to try to find out before next month is I'm still in contact with Chris Hanzak, who was the person that owned that studio at the time, and find out what console we recorded through then. It was done in 1995. And was recorded through a console to tape, and so but I know like I said, I wasn't paying attention to that stuff back then. All I know is it was cool with flying faders and all this stuff. It was like
probably an Eve. It was probably an Eve, or could have been an Eve. Yeah. I mean, there wasn't. It wasn't a lot of consoles back then that had the flying faders. Well, it could have been. It could have been something else, but.
Yeah. This is a really good motivation for people who want to sign up for Mixing Made Easy right now, because if you sign up now, the September content is going to be David mixing a song that was recorded in an actual recording studio on the SSL console, and then doing like a parallel lesson of this is what it's like doing analog, and this is how you can basically emulate this in the box. It's going to be a pretty much a full-on, more so than usual, a full-on recording course. And so if anybody's on the fence about signing up for Mixing Made Easy, do it now. because this is going to be this is a killer when you want to be in on this one.
Yeah, so mixingmadeeasy.net for people that want to know. There's some guys here in the chat, and Jimmy and Dave are both members there as well. And so typically we mix, in the box every month, different plugins, different DAW, different style of music every single month. And we have a different challenge I give the students every single month. This month and maybe even next month is something a little special because with other things that are going on at Mixing Music Analog, you guys will see some of these videos coming up. I'm working on and trying to practice, for lack of a better word, filming a mixing course for hybrid with 5 different camera angles. And so the way I need to do that is to practice and to make sure I got the whole process down. And we thought, what better way to do that than to use some Mixing Made Easy content and record that for the students as kind of a special thing. And at the same time, I can work out any of the kinks I'm going to need for when I release a commercial product. So this will be this is the first time that we've ever done a Mixing Made Easy month where it wasn't all in the box, that it's all going to be analog. And what makes it even more special is Jimmy's song that we're using from the Mouth Chicks was recorded all analog. So it's a recorded analog track, completely mixed analog with very few plugins. And so that'll be something that'll be cool. You guys, if you're members, will get the multi-track files so you can mix the song along with us as part of the content. So you'll have that as well. And you'll probably end up with 4 to 5 or 6 hours worth of video training on how we mixed it from start to finished. So you may want to check that out because we don't do that very often. I don't do that. I haven't done it at all. This will be the first time. So it'll be a lot of fun and it'll be a great song to mix. So any more questions? Let's see. Kaiser says, one of the best live streams. Thanks from everyone to reach out to us. You are very welcome. Thank you for joining us. And again, if you want your studio as part of the Subscribers Studio Spotlight in an upcoming episode, make sure you go to mixingmusicanalog.com and send me an email. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your studio. If you'd like to come on like Jimmy did and share your journey and your experience with us, we want to spend a lot of time in the future, Dave and I, trying to be a little bit more personable with the people that we see in the comment sections and we see in the chat rooms. We rarely get a chance to meet people face to face, well, over the internet, face to face. And this is kind of cool. And again, we're all here trying to learn from each other. So we'd love to hear about your experiences. Dave, you have anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I think that pretty much does it. I've got links up in there for Mixing Made Easy in case anybody is interested, and I also put I put the Mixing Music Analog link up in the chat so people can head over there and let us know if they want to join in on this. We'd be glad to have anybody that's capable of doing it. So no, other than that, I think we've pretty much covered a whole bunch tonight.
Yeah, we did. And Jim, thanks so much, Jimmy, for joining us and taking some time out of your Sunday. And thank your wife for allowing you to come down to the basement and spend some time when you're probably missing dinner. We do appreciate her for letting us do that as well. So thanks so much. And until next time, I've been Dave and he's been Dave and we have Jimmy here.
And he's been Jimmy.
And he's been Jimmy with Mixing Music Analog and mixingmusicanalog.com. Thanks everybody so very much for watching and we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody.
Later all.